Today we're discussing a case study of a French entrepreneur wanting to move to the UAE with his family. I'm joined by two guests, Marie O'Neill from EER and Jerry Parks from Taylor Wessing in Dubai. Welcome, Marie.
Thank you, David. Delighted to be here. My name is Marie O'Neill. I'm the co-owner of EER, Corporate Services, Immigration and Relocation Provider located in Dubai, and we offer services across the Middle East.
Fantastic. And Jerry, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about your practice at Taylor Wessing in Dubai.
Thanks. I'm Jerry Parks. I'm a partner and head of real estate at the law firm Taylor Wessing. I'm based in Dubai, where I've lived for the past 26 years. We focus on inward investment into Dubai, acting for a lot of overseas private clients, particularly in the high-end residential real estate space.
So just to get into the scenario a little bit, we have the case here of Pierre Bernard, who's a French entrepreneur, 50 years old, married to Elise, 35, with two children, 5 and 2. Pierre has two older children from a previous marriage who are resident in France. Pierre's recently sold his retail business in France for 30 million euros. He has spent many holidays in Dubai but wants to relocate there more permanently with his young family. He needs advice on UAE visas. He's not currently working but looking at investing in new retail ventures in the GCC. He needs advice also on a property to live in, and he's open to buying land to develop if he can't find anything suitable. He also needs advice on schools for his young children. So Marie, is this kind of entrepreneurial client one that you're seeing more of making permanent move to the UAE at the moment?
Yes, definitely, David. We're seeing a lot of this and a lot of clients moving from Europe at the moment, high net worths, entrepreneurs wanting to bring their business to the UAE or perhaps just looking at residency options in the UAE. So in Pierre's case, we could look at, he might want to set up an entity and maybe have an activity of consultancy, set up his entity and get his visa under that entity. Or he may look at the golden visa route. So with the golden visa route, he would have two options of either purchasing a property to the value of 2 million dirhams and above, and then applying for his golden visa, or he can put 2 million dirhams into a fixed deposit account for 2 years and then get his golden visa. The golden visa is quite attractive because it's a 10-year visa, and then he doesn't have to worry about his visa for 10 years. So that's setting up the entity, getting the 2-year renewable visa or a golden visa, getting a 10-year renewable visa. Both of those options would be the most applicable to Pierre.
So you look at really his intentions, his lifestyle, how he sees himself setting himself up,
yes,
and then really pick the best option of a couple to find the one that matches.
What's his current situation, what's his short-term plan and his long-term plan, and then we would look at what are the best residency and visa options for him, outline them to him, and then basically once he chooses which one he feels is more applicable to him, once we've told him what the pros and cons are of them, then we can process the visa for him.
And his wife would also be covered under that application?
Yes, so basically he would get his visa and then he would sponsor his wife and his 2 children under his visa.
And how long might the application process take for the visa?
Yeah, so the application process is anything from 2 to 6 weeks for the immigration part. If he's setting up an entity, you're looking at 6 to 8 weeks, maximum 3 months to set up the entity. First off, in regards to his immigration, we would make sure that all his documents legalised. This can take 6 to 8 weeks because they need to go to the country they originated from. So that's what would slow down the process. And again, not having the documentation that we require. But once we have the documentation, it is a relatively quick process.
So if he's currently in France, there's certain preparations, obviously, that he could be making ahead of time.
Exactly, and we would definitely want to have a conversation with him to outline everything. And the most important part would be getting the documents legalised and attested in the home country. So we would start that process, and then it just gives us some time then to take care of everything else.
And what's the sort of ideal timeline for a move? I mean, what's a good amount of time to have as notice to get these various things in place?
I suppose in Pierre's case, when he has young children, 2 and 5, his 5-year-old will be attending school. So basically the schooling will be a big factor in Pierre's move, because schools start in the UAE in September. So ideally he would want his child to transition to school in September. They can also transition in January, which is mid-term. So we would look at, if Pierre is moving, we would definitely start looking at the schooling first, looking at what curriculum they're interested in, and then fine-tuning what schools are available, if there are waiting lists or not, registering his child in at least one, if not 2 or 3 schools, so we have some options. And then basically we would recommend then that Pierre would move maybe after June, the end of the school year, July, August, before the school year starts. So with families with young children, that's what we would definitely recommend.
And the schooling would be in English with options
Yes.
to learn some French as well. But
Yeah.
I mean, what sort of options might cater to?
So basically, all the curriculums are available in the UAE. So everything from your British, your IB, American, and also French. So there are some French schools in Dubai.
Okay.
There aren't a lot. Younger years in the schools in general are quite difficult to get places, because a lot of people move to Dubai as couples or young families. So, and then if we're narrowing down to just one curriculum, the French curriculum with very few schools and the younger age, we would definitely want to start looking and getting his child on a wait list as soon as possible.
And then the property also flows from that, doesn't it? Because if you're narrowing the search on schools,
Yes,
you
exactly.
naturally also want to be close by, don't you?
Yes, because you definitely want to be close by the school, just for traffic reasons and early start times of the school. And then with the French schools, there are only a few and limited areas in Dubai, so we would definitely want to look at properties around those areas and communities around those areas. So once we fine-tune the school, then we would look at a home search day for him, looking at different communities close to that school.
And in terms of the styles of property, there's villas, apartments, opportunity to buy land. I mean, what are some of the things that you might look at for a client looking to make this sort of a real permanent base in Dubai?
Yeah, so there are various options. As you said, there are villas, apartments. Also, there's an opportunity to purchase a plot of land and build his own property. But I suppose the important part with Pierre is a young family. So, most young families would like to be in a community. So they have the pool, they have the community feel, they have more children and close to the school as well. So this would be an important factor for Pierre. But there are several communities in Dubai where expats live. So we would go through, and what's important too is our relocation consultant would drive them around, show them different areas, and sample properties in these areas too, because the properties can be quite different. Some are older, and when we say old in Dubai, a 20-year property in Dubai is an old property that sometimes needs to be renovated. And then there are a lot of new developments coming online all the time.
And would Pierre likely find a French expat community in Dubai? I mean, it represents all corners of the world, doesn't it? People who live in Dubai. But what do you see from Europe? This is part of a bigger trend, I guess, of people relocating, isn't it?
Yes, and David, there are 80 to 85% of people living in Dubai are expats. So every pocket, really, there are so many expat areas, and every pocket has a mix of all nationalities. From American, different Europeans, Asians. They all tend to mix in communities. I suppose where the French schools are and the communities around those French schools, you would probably have more French nationals living in those areas. But Dubai, that's one of the great things about Dubai. It is so multicultural, and you have nationalities, various nationalities living in the same community together.
And Pierre successfully built and sold a retail business in France. He's not got firm plans to be working while he's in the UAE, but if he can't resist that entrepreneurial urge,
Yes.
and what are some of the options he might have to develop a business, consultancy business, or other type of services?
And definitely, David, Dubai has that entrepreneurial spirit. So I'm sure when Pierre moves, he would definitely at some stage want to start something again.
Spot opportunities.
Yeah. And look, there are various options, and setting up an entity. There are something like 50 plus free zones in the UAE. And you've also got mainland now where you can be 100% foreign owned entity. So he has options. We'd basically look at what is the exact activity he's looking at. Is it just going to be him, or is he going to hire staff? Does he want an office or not? Does he need a corporate bank account? So we would sit down, speak about all these factors, ask him all the questions, and then we'd present to him. It might be 2 or 3 different free zones that would be applicable to his case.
And it would be very straightforward if he was just looking to hire a couple of staff, take some co-working space, quite a lean, administrative operation, that would be very much meat and drink for you.
Definitely. And, from a co-working space as well, there are several serviced office and like everywhere in the world, that's becoming more and more popular.
Thanks, Marie. And Jerry, just to bring you in, regarding the purchase of a property, perhaps you could talk us through the key steps of the conveyancing process.
Sure. I mean, the conveyancing process is not dissimilar to the process that you might expect to deal with in the UK, for example. It essentially involves an exchange of contracts and then a subsequent completion. So the first thing that would happen is that the clients would come to us when they've identified a property, usually using a broker. We then look at putting together the agreement for sale. Once the agreement for sale has been agreed, it is signed electronically and filed with the Dubai Land Department. That triggers the payment of the deposit, which is usually 10% of the purchase price. The service we provide to our client is complete in the sense that not only do we draft the contracts, but we also receive into our client account the purchase price to enable us to, at this point, pay out the deposit amount to the seller. Well, it's made payable to the seller, but it's actually held by the broker in escrow. At that point, the seller would usually then apply for what is called the NOC, or the No Objection Certificate, which is issued by the developer. All that is simply a confirmation from the developer that the seller is up to date with his service charges, hasn't been in breach of any planning regulations or anything. Once the seller has the NOC, the parties are free to move to completion. So at that point, we would usually call for the client to transfer the balance of the purchase price to our client account. We would then be responsible for drawing the manager's checks, which are required by the Dubai Land Department under the current procedure. So those would be payments to the seller for the balance of the purchase price, payments to the Dubai Land Department for the transfer fee, which is currently 4% of the property value, payment to the broker if there's a broker involved, and a commission payable, and also a payment to the trustee registration office, which is an admin fee payable to the satellite office of the Land Department that is currently responsible for dealing with transfers. Once we have all those payments in hand, we attend power of attorney on behalf of the client at the transfer office, where we meet with the seller and we submit all the checks to the Dubai Land Department. They process the transfer and issue the title deed. We take the title deed, the seller takes the proceeds of sale. So, as I say, something that's broadly recognizable to anyone who's dealt with UK property, exchange and completion, with us hopefully standing in the middle and looking after the client's funds throughout.
Thanks. And if he can't find the right property, what are the options for buying land and building something himself?
Yeah, if the client can't find a completed property, there is an option to purchase land in Dubai. There are fewer options to purchase land than completed properties simply because of the numbers involved. But it is possible to purchase plots still. There are plots available, for example, on certain fronds on Palm Jumeirah that most people will have heard of. There's a new development, Jumeirah Bay, where only last week a plot sold for 125 million dirhams, which was the highest per square foot plot sale value in Dubai. So there are plots available. If the client wants to go down that road, obviously that then involves the construction of a villa, which has its pros and cons. It takes time, but of course you are able to build your dream home.
And what are some of the issues around designing and building a new property?
I mean, I think as in any other jurisdiction, if you are designing and building a property for yourself, it's a significant asset. You need to be sure that you've got the right advisors on board. It's difficult, I guess, for a lot of clients who are based overseas to manage the process. So not only do you need to make sure that you've got the right designers, architects, contractors, but you need a project manager that you can trust primarily, but also a project manager that has experience of the local environment. I think that's absolutely key. In terms of the legals, firms like ours can obviously look at the documentation to make sure that you're legally protected, but it's very much a practical issue. So I think it's important to make sure you've got the right advisors across the board.
Once someone owns real estate in the UAE, what should they be considering from an estate planning perspective?
Yes, a lot of clients buy in personal names, and there's many reasons for that. I mean, it's a very fast-moving market, and in order to secure the right property at the right price, it's important to be able to move quickly. And for that reason, among others, people do buy in their personal names. There's no tax disincentive locally to do that. But that then brings into question how to protect yourself in the sense of succession and inheritance. Some years ago, the Dubai International Financial Centre developed the wills service, the DIFC wills service. What that allows clients now to do is to sign and file a will in the English language based on common law principles, which can expressly exclude the application of Sharia law. Now, that's important because previously clients who bought in their personal names would be concerned about whether their wishes would be respected on death or whether Sharia law would apply as a sort of overlay. But the DIFC Wills and Probate Registry, the wills service that I just mentioned, is a solution to that. So we would recommend as a first consideration that you look at putting together a DIFC will, and we can, and very much a part of what we do is to advise on and draft DIFC wills, primarily for real estate clients.
Thanks. And finally, Jerry, how can he make sure he can provide for his older children in France in the event of his death?
Yes, and this really I would echo what I just mentioned in relation to DIFC wills, because in this specific scenario, the client would be well advised to think of putting in place a DIFC will which expressly mentions the older children in France, if indeed those are the beneficiaries that he would like the property to go to. So I would say that would address his needs perfectly in this case.
Thanks, Jerry. And Marie, so if Pierre wants to sort of kick off this project, what are the next steps you'd take with him?
Yes, well, we'd be delighted to speak with Pierre. If he's currently still in France, we would definitely arrange a call with him, go through his requirements in detail, outline some options, fine-tune that, and then assign an account manager to him that would manage the whole process with Pierre from A to Z, from setting up an entity if he requires that, getting his residency, and also helping him find a property, schooling, and all the settling in involved in moving to Dubai.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you to Marie and to Jerry for contributing to this case study today. If you've enjoyed the content, please reach out to them directly for more information.